Today, I'm here to introduce to you the golden mean of strengths. It's about finding that perfect pitch by becoming aware of how to manage both over and underuse of all 24 character strengths. When we talk about strength synergies, whether within ourselves or across our teams, we mean that the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. And strengths collisions, they're about navigating potential clashes by understanding how others' signature strengths might inadvertently collide with ours. We build tolerance and empathy by recognizing the diversity in approaches we all bring to the table. Since we know that leaning into our strengths is a wonderful way to get along and really important in our workplaces, we're going to talk about another way to avoid potential conflicts. Even with strengths, there can be too much or too little of a good thing. We talk about that as strengths overuse and underuse. The ideal deployment of a strength is called its golden mean. In short, it's when you're using the right strength in the right amount at the right time. And when you strike that golden mean, you're getting the maximum positive impact each strength can deliver. Imagine a plant where water is a strength. When you underwater, the plant is going to turn brown and shrivel. Similarly, underuse of a strength means it simply is not being used enough. This often applies to lesser strengths, the ones that don't come as naturally to all of us. For example, for me, perseverance is near my bottom. It makes me run from anything that smacks of a timeline. And as a result, I've missed a couple of really important deadlines in my lifetime that I really wish I hadn't. Like a plant that's overwatered, too much resilience on strength, for instance, my totally overdoing creativity so that I have a million ideas and no way to possibly execute them all, bogs us down. It could be that a strength you bring to the situation may be just too much for the moment. For example, too much zest when giving critical feedback could backfire. Saying, I'm 100% sure you're going to get promoted next time, well, that's a promise that you really might not be able to keep. But when we use the right strength in the right amount at the right time, we and all our teams will flourish. So what can we do when we recognize we're overusing or underusing a strength? We can dial it up or dial it down. It calls for a level of self-reflection to recognize which strengths we need to manage and how to manage them, but it's a great way to tweak our behaviors for maximum results. For example, if you're about to give an important presentation, you might want to dial up bravery and zest, two of your lesser strengths, and dial down your top strength of humility just a bit. All that so that you can be your most confident self. Doesn't mean that you need to eliminate those strengths because they're core to who you are. It's just about recognizing the need to rely on the right strengths in the right amount at the right time. And it works for teams too. For example, at the start of a meeting, you might review the agenda and discuss which strengths the team will need to dial up or dial down in order to get the job done. For instance, for a brainstorming session, you might tell the team in advance to come prepared to dial up creativity and curiosity and dial down a little prudence and judgment. You can also look at your team chart together and talk about what strengths you collectively tend to overuse or underuse. At Mayerson, for example, we know that we have a lot of humor on our team. It's a lot of fun, but sometimes we have to kind of tone it down just a bit for the situation, like maybe when we're presenting in front of the board. And with so many of us having zest as kind of a weak spot, we know who to turn to when we need a zest whisperer to bring up the energy in the room. You might think dialing up always means more of and dialing down means less of, but sometimes it's more nuanced. For example, with honesty, dialing down honesty doesn't mean being less honest or lying to people. Rather, it's about being honest in a way so that people can hear you without fear or anger. Often your challenge will be to pull up a lesser strength. That's what we call towing. Imagine this time that honesty is actually one of your lesser strengths, and you're about to have a difficult conversation with a colleague that requires you to give very direct feedback. Rather than simply spurting out the honest truth in a very uncomfortable way, it might be better to tap into your top strengths of kindness and prudence to pull up that honesty or tow up that honesty. leaning into your natural compassion and wisdom enables you to share directly, personally, and constructively. Finally, there's some over-under fundamentals you should keep in mind as we explore this concept further. First, any of the 24 strengths can be overused or underused. When a strength is overused or underused, guess what? It's not a strength anymore because it's actually negatively affecting oneself or others. Next, it's interesting to note that Michelle McQuaid's research shows that performance issues at work are most frequently the result of overusing a strength rather than underusing it. And by the way, we all have a tendency to overuse our tough strengths the most. This insight can help inform and transform performance conversations so that we do them through a lens of strengths rather than talking about fixing weaknesses. Next, know that over and underuse is contextual and really based on others' perceptions. While your deployment of zest might be exactly the right amount for a group of 7th graders you're presenting to on a Friday afternoon, it might be way too much for your teammates at 7:30 on a Monday morning. Next, bias. Bias can come into play in how we perceive over and underuse in others. Similar to how we are most likely to recognize and appreciate our own top strengths in others, we're less likely to recognize and appreciate our lesser strengths in others. I leave you with one final note. It's important to primarily use your knowledge of overuse and underuse to understand and reflect on your own actions and behaviors, not so much to label others' actions or personality types. It's supposed to give you pause and perspective so that you can thoughtfully consider how you want to show up. That's a powerful force for getting along. Lastly, don't forget to take a look at the over-underuse chart from strength researcher Ryan Nemec. It's a great resource for building a new, deep sensitivity for how your signature strengths may show up under a range of circumstances. Truly a guide for life based on finding that golden mean of each of your strengths. Not too much, not too little, the right strengths, the right amount, at the right time.